Our next reading today is from the book of the prophet Isaiah, part of chapter 2. Now it shall come to pass in those days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. Many people shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us in his ways, and we shall walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations and rebuke many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. And the next reading is from the book of the prophet Joel, part of chapter 3. Proclaim this among the nations, prepare for war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble and come together, all you nations, and gather together all around. Cause your mighty ones to go down there, O Lord. Let the nations be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there I will sit to judge all the surrounding nations. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, go down, for the winepress is full. The vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon will grow dark, and the stars will diminish their brightness, and the Lord will roar from Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. The heavens and the earth will shake, but the Lord will be a shelter for his people and the strength of the children of Israel. And our final reading today is from the book Arcana Coelestia, or Heavenly Secrets, part of number 5036. As for temptations, they are going on while a person is in the actual process of being regenerated. For no one can be regenerated unless they also undergo temptations. And the evil spirits around them are the means through which those temptations are brought about. In temptation, the person is brought into a state in which the evil that possesses him, that is, possesses his own essential self, is dominant. Once he enters this state, evil and hellish spirits surround him, and when they realize that he is protected inwardly by angels, those evil spirits reactivate the false ideas he has previously contemplated and the evil deeds he has committed. But the angels defend him from within. This conflict is what the person experiences as temptation. Yet the experience is so vague that he is aware of it as scarcely anything more than a feeling of anxiety. For a person, especially one who has no belief at all in influx, dwells in a state of complete obscurity and discerns scarcely the smallest fraction of the things over which the evil spirits and angels are engaged in conflict. Yet, a battle is taking place at such a time over that person and their eternal salvation, with both sides using what is within the person. For both sides draw on what resides within the person and engage in conflict over it. Amen. So, it's no secret that there's a lot of war described in the Word, especially in the Old Testament. There are a lot of battles, a lot of references to violence. And it can be hard to know what to make of that, since it seems fair to say that most people, at least most people living today, think of war as bad, as to be avoided if possible. Does the Word tell us otherwise? Does the Word glorify war? Surely it can't be that way. Surely the Lord agrees with us that war is bad. There certainly are a lot of strong statements in the Word that direct us away from war. In our reading from Isaiah, the Lord says, "They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore." But there seem to be an equal number of statements that lead us directly to war or advocate for war. And in our reading from Joel, the Lord says, "They shall beat their plowshares into swords, and their pruning hooks into spears." In the 46th Psalm, we're told that the Lord makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and cuts the spear in two. But then in Exodus, we read, "The Lord is a man of war." And we get the same kind of thing even in the New Testament. The Lord says, "These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace." But he also says, "Do not think that I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword." So what are we supposed to do with this? What's going on here? Is the Lord opposed to war, or is he calling us to war? Is he a man of war, or is he the Prince of Peace? As is so often the case, the answer is yes. Yes to all of the above. Perhaps the clearest way to put it is that he calls us to fight so that we may have peace. He goes out to war so that we may have peace. But in order for those statements to be properly understood, there are a lot of other teachings that need to be brought into the picture. The first is that the Lord does not want war. More specifically, the Lord does not want hatred, suffering, or violence. And how could he? If he had the slightest desire for hatred or violence, then he could not be who he is. It is impossible for love itself to want these things. A related point is that murder is and always has been forbidden by the Ten Commandments, and there's no equivocation around that point. Violence is bad. But it's important to make distinctions between conflict and violence and hatred. They often go together. Conflict often rises out of hatred. Conflict often leads to violence. But choosing to fight doesn't necessarily mean that you hate or that you love violence. Connected to these ideas is the teaching that the Lord is peace. There are statements in the scriptures which show that he's willing to go to war, but war is not who he is. He is peace. In the heavenly doctrines of the new church, we're told innocence and peace are the two inmost things of heaven. They are called inmost because they proceed immediately from the Lord, who is innocence itself and peace itself. From innocence, the Lord is called the Lamb, and from peace he said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." Clearly, if the Lord is peace, and peace is one of the inmost things of heaven, then we can safely say that war is not the goal. War is not what he wants for us. There is no war in heaven, and heaven is where he's leading us. The most that could be said for war is that a certain kind of war is sometimes the means to that end. Another important piece of context for my main point is that everything that's said in the Old and New Testaments has an internal sense. Everything in the Old and New Testaments is symbolic and represents something taking place within our spirits. So when the Lord talks about swords and wars, he's talking about spiritual wars or spiritual conflicts, which are generally called temptations. Our third reading from Arcana Coelestia describes what's going on within temptation. A temptation is a battle between the evil spirits and the angels who are present with us. Temptation begins when we run up against evil within ourselves that we've not yet overcome. As the reading puts it, in temptation, the person is brought into a state in which the evil that possesses him is dominant. No one wants to think of themselves as dominated by evil. An important thing to understand, though, is that the state that's described here, the state of temptation, happens to good people. This is how our spirits grow. It's simply true that there is potential for tremendous darkness within every human being. And if we're honest with ourselves, we can see that. Most people lead decent lives and keep that potential suppressed. But the only way for us to truly be freed of that innate pull towards selfishness is to confront it. And so the Lord allows us to enter into temptation. The reading said, no one can be regenerated, that is, reborn, unless they also undergo temptations. The reading said that in temptation, the evil spirits reactivate every false idea we've ever had and every bad thing we've ever done. They dredge up every shameful memory or feeling of failure that we've ever had, and they accuse us and condemn us. They fight really dirty, but the angels defend us from within. And that combat between those angels and evil spirits is nothing less than war. It's a battle for our souls. The idea of a siege in which a city full of innocents or non-combatants is surrounded and assaulted has always been invested with symbolic significance. And it's been a theme in a lot of the stories that have been told over the centuries. And there's good reason for that. In temptation, something like a siege really is going on within us. In the doctrines we're told, the human mind is compared in the word to a city and is actually called a city. And because it is compared to and actually called a city, it's depicted as having gates and is described in various places as having enemies. That is, evil genii and spirits besieging it and assaulting it, while angels from the Lord are defending it. That is, the Lord himself is doing so. These ideas might sound melodramatic. The idea that the stakes in life are this high might seem extreme. And most of us probably don't like to think of ourselves as people with enemies. But the truth is that we have spiritual enemies. And are these ideas melodramatic if they're true? Another important thing to bear in mind is that diplomacy doesn't work with evil spirits. We've probably all been taught to look for constructive solutions to the issues that we have with people. And if we saw two children fighting, we'd say to them, stop, don't use your fists, fix it with your words. We'd probably approach any conflict situation with that attitude. Couldn't you at least try to work it out before escalating? But the evil spirits have no interest in working it out. They are not reasonable and won't be reasoned with. The heavenly doctrines have this to say about the Lord's battle with the hells when he was on earth in the flesh. It needs to be known that the Lord's battle with the hells was not a battle of words, like people arguing a point or disputing in a court of law. That sort of battle is quite ineffectual here. It was a spiritual battle, divine truth fighting with the strength of divine good, that is the very life force of the Lord. If we try to take the hells to court, they're just going to take us to the battlefield. And so the fact that there is a battle going on within you does not have to mean that you like conflict or are filled with hate. The evil spirits make that conflict happen. And the reading from Arcana Coelestia says that we don't really perceive that internal battle. We read, this conflict is what a person experiences as temptation, yet the experience is so vague that he's aware of it as scarcely anything more than a feeling of anxiety. And that statement is so important because it connects these dramatic images of spiritual warfare with things that we've actually experienced. We don't see the hosts of hell laying siege to our minds, but we've all felt anxiety. We've all had days or weeks or phases of life that felt hard, harder than they should feel, hard for no reason that we can adequately explain. Surely we've all known what it is to feel life is a struggle. And maybe we've even recognized that, yeah, we can point to this or that external thing that's difficult, but that those external things by themselves don't really explain the struggle that we feel within. And isn't it validating to hear the Lord say that that struggle is very real, and that we don't struggle because we're weaklings. We're not missing something, some elixir of contentment that everyone else has discovered. We're not anxious because we're a failure. The battle within is very real. And of course, the Lord doesn't want that battle to exist. He doesn't want hell to attack us. He doesn't want anxiety for us. He wants peace. But the battle is happening. To be freed of the influence of hell, we have to confront it. And it does no good when we're in the midst of something hard to hear the glories of peace extolled, to hear how it should have gone. When we feel hell's presence, we don't need inapplicable ideals. We need help. We need a rallying cry. We need a voice of courage. And the Lord answers with that voice. He says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Again and again in His Word, He shows us what courage looks like. From the book of Micah, do not rejoice over me, my enemy. When I fall, I will arise. When I sit in darkness, the Lord will be a light to me. And from John, these things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. He talks about war in his word because we all experience spiritual conflict. He talks about war because a lot of the time, that's the present reality of our interior lives. And that's what we need help with. And of course, war isn't the only reality of spiritual life. Neither is war the only thing that's talked about in the Word. But if we ever wonder why there's so much war in the Word, it's because the Lord is illustrating what we experience. An important point that I don't have time to address fully is that the enemy in these spiritual combats is evil, but evil is sometimes spoken of as something that we own, and sometimes spoken of as something outside of us, rising out of hell. And it matters which of those two it is. Are we ourselves the enemy, or is the enemy something outside of us? The simple answer is that we get to choose. We get to decide whether we will own the evil associated with our spirits or whether it's something we will have no part in. We don't have to be at war with ourselves. But coming to that understanding is a process, and it takes time. Peace remains the Lord's goal. Peace is what He wills for us. He only ever asks us to fight for the sake of peace. And if we do His work, He will lead us into deeper and deeper peace. His goal is to bring us to a place where hell cannot touch us. We're told the heavenly person is not involved in conflict. If evils and falsities assail him, he treats them with disdain and is therefore called a conqueror. No visible bonds restrain him, for he is free. That's where the Lord is taking us. For now, we fight the good fight, and our God reveals Himself to us as a warrior fighting with us, and as a lion roaring with zeal to defend us. He speaks with the voice of strength and the voice of courage. But in the end, if His will is done, the voice of peace will prevail. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. Amen.